to welcome everybody here on this Monday morning. It's always a big effort because there's already a to-do list a mile long, and to prioritise something like this I know isn't easy, but it's obviously a vitally important issue and topic for us here in Victoria and as it is across the country. Before we go too much further, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we're meeting on and pay respects to elders past and present. And I always have a quiet moment before I come into this building because you don't have to walk very far across the road to just be absorbed in some fabulous bushland and the bird life, and it's very easy to think back and remember that we've really only built on this land for a very short period of time, and to kind of recognise our place in history really. So yes, we pay our respects and we welcome any traditional people who, or any Aboriginal people who are here and bring their wisdom to our table today. The other thing I'd like to acknowledge before we get going is that this forum today is a joint venture really. So VICSERV has partnered with Mental Health Australia, formerly known as the Council or the Mental Health Council of Australia, but now Mental Health Australia. They in turn have partnered with NDIS, which is the National Disability Service, and all of us are in some way in partnership with either the National Disability Insurance Agency, who are supporting these workshops around the country, or with our state and territory departments in the trial of the NDIS in the Barwon site. So a very collaborative effort and affair to get here and to bring you the up-to-date information that we've got today. And thank you to all those people who've made a contribution in getting us to this point. These readiness forums were rolled out around the rest of the country in the first part of this year, somewhere between about March, May, June. And when we had a few calls from Mental Health Australia saying, you know, are you ready for a readiness workshop? We went, no, go away, like seriously, not now. And I think all of you would remember just how very busy you were between February and May, June this year, preparing for the state reforms. And so here we are really quite a long time later, but that gives us a different perspective that we can bring to the issues. It gives us a little bit more information, and we've perhaps become clearer in some of our views around where the NDIS, the scheme, might sit in a broader mental health service system into the future. So that kind of alludes really to the Victorian situation. Whenever anybody talks to me about NDIS, I'm reminded of that analogy I learnt years ago. There's a big elephant and there's a whole lot of people who are either blindfolded or blind who are holding the elephant in different parts, and they all think they've got something different. You know, someone's got hold of the tail and they've got a snake, and someone's got hold of the leg of the elephant and they think they're holding a tree, and so it goes on, you know. And I think when you talk NDIA, everybody rushes up to me and starts talking and tells me the world according to their perspective of the scheme and the agency. And yet it's very different in every launch site, and it's quite different around the country because each state and territory has made a different agreement with the federal government through that COAG process and the bilateral agreements as to what part the scheme will play in their state. So in Victoria, with our launch site at the moment, we've got all of our pre-existing PDRS services rolled into the launch site, and so we've been really very to put the positive spin on it, we've given the scheme the best possible test. We've given it a real shake to see how far this disability scheme can go to meet the needs of people with psychosocial disability. The story coming out of Barwon, and there are some Barwon people here today, is quite a mixed one, and I don't want to go into that too much at this point. I think as the day goes on we'll hear more about that. But I think after 18 months now of seeking to phase in those clients, VICSERV at the very least has come to the view that the NDIS, in the way it's been trialled in Barwon, is in no way a sufficient replacement for the community managed mental health service system that we have now. And that's why our state election statement says that we're supportive of NDIS, and we still are. We still believe that there is a place for the NDIS with a slice or a small group or small cohort, but there will need to be, in addition to that, remaining a set of services which are health oriented, not insurance from an insurance base or a disability, but are health oriented in how they're assessed for and goals are set and how people go about attaining those, and that links to the hospital networks in addition to an NDIS. So I think it's been a very tough time for the providers in Barwon, and sadly they face another 6 to 12, 18 months really of working with what's not really a sufficient replacement for our current system. But you'll hear more about that later. So the other thing that I would just say, and I think Josh is going to talk to this much more, is that when people talk about NDIS, some people are talking about the issues that are immediate, that are here right now. And when you talk to anyone in Barwon, please don't say to them, but we're building the scheme and it'll be in place in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, because they'll probably headbutt you. Like seriously, they're just a bit over that, because they're sitting down in Barwon at the moment with their consumers, with family members, with police, with their clinical partners and with their staff, and as managers trying to nut out, how do we make this work when we've already come to a view that it's not a sufficient replacement for our existing system? How will we make this work? And so people saying that, but don't worry, because there'll be a discussion about, you know, how we fill the gaps in Victoria over the next 12 to 18 months, and don't worry because we're still working on scheme design at the national level and that'll be done in the next 2 to 3 to 4 years. They're different time frames, and yet people have needs in amongst that. So look, I won't say any more on that, but it is always worth, when people tell you something is black and white about the scheme or the agency, to ask, are you talking about a local, a state or a national level? And what's the time frame that you're talking about? And remembering that there are lots of different time frames at play in this space. And that way you can start to find your way through this maze of what is a very, very complex service offering, which is really going to develop over our working lives. It's not going to be done quickly. It's going to take time.